He had a life now, and he had friends. Most of all, he couldn't leave Zenwin. Glass asked, "Do you think everybody else is okay?" Red couldn't answer. They fell into silence as the base neared. The dampeners, once sophisticated speakers on top of tall posts positioned around the testing site, now looked like stone defensive towers. Red had never seen them transformed by an actuation before. Seeing them as towers now filled him with a sick sense of foreboding. A crenellated stone wall replaced the razor-topped chain-link fence that used to surround the 2-mile area where they conducted experiments. As the base, which attached to the testing ground on the far side, drew near, they saw the buildings had all been transformed into medieval architecture, both Gothic and fantastic. Where the road entered the facility, huge wooden gates in the stone perimeter hung shattered on iron hinges. Screams and crashes pierced the loud commotion of the carriage, getting louder as they approached. Red slowed the horses before entering the broken doors. Except for the occasional glimpse of somebody rushing across the street or slamming heavy shutters, they couldn't see what had everybody running. Red assumed orcs. When they finally brought the carriage to a halt in front of the main row of barracks, he jumped down. He recognized Marcus Beechin darting into a nearby alley and called out, "Mac!" The taller, stronger machine monk ducked behind a column without a word, poking his head out to check if anybody else saw him. Red went over and asked, "What's going on?" Mac glared up the street in both directions, then looked up at the sky. "It's not safe." He glanced back at the carriage. "Better get those guys off the street." Red signaled the rest of them to follow him into the small alley. He put his jacket back on despite the heat while the others worked their way in behind. "You can probably handle an orc. Aren't monsters kind of your thing?" Red asked. "Of course," Max said. He had on a gray muscle shirt, which prominently displayed the skull tattoo on his shoulder. "The guards out in the field all turned into orcs. They've been marauding through the base, killing anybody they find." "Won't they find us when they see the carriage?" Glass asked. "Good point." Red veered between two buildings. When they reached the next road, he checked both directions before crossing to the recreation center, which now looked like a medieval cathedral. "Everybody out!" Red jumped down and walked back across the road. Everybody followed. He pulled back his crossbow and loaded a bolt. One shot wouldn't be enough if a whole group of orcs found them. "It gets worse," Max said. "Worse than a band of orcs killing everybody they find?" Cindy pushed her glasses up on her nose. "Commander Newell is A crash sounded outside. Red rushed to the door in time to see a flamethrower ignite the horses and carriage in a single, terrible conflagration. Then massive reptilian claws swooped through the fire and scattered the carriage into flying pieces of burning wood. The horses burned where they landed, dying in a ball of smoke and ash. Red jumped back to avoid a fiery wheel as it bounced up the steps and into the hall where the machine monks now cowered. When he looked back, he finished Mac's sentence. "Dragon." Gigantic wings lifted the mighty titan, covered with coppery scales and bigger than a whale, into the air. Her serpentine tail traced the graceful flight. "I think most of the orcs died fighting that thing," Max said. "What happened out there?" Red pointed toward the test area. "Where's John?" "Chaos," Max said with raised eyebrows. "Everything seemed normal except they put in more machine monks for this test, which we all knew from the long briefing. All systems checked out, so they started the actuator. We all put in our ideas and the machine started churning. But instead of giving us each a slice, like before, the machine transformed everything into this fantasy. John ran off and the rest of us stood around like idiots because the conversation just kept going on. The actuator kept asking for more and more. We all just kept feeding it idea after idea. At least I did." Suddenly they all jerked to the side when a guttural growl echoed toward them, followed by the sound of rapidly squelched screams. Everybody else froze, but Max smiled. "Anyway, when it finally stopped, the actuator had 25 keyholes. I've never seen it with so many, of every shape and size, covering the console. All those keyholes, but Zenwin's was the only reality change we could see. The machine was spitting white lightning."